Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and potential Toastmasters. Welcome to Wake Up with Toastmasters. I'm your host, District 115 Club Growth Director, Ken Richardson, and with me today is my lovely co-host, distinguished Toastmaster and past District Governor, Phyllis Trivey. Good morning, Phyllis.
Good morning, Ken, and hello to our public out there. How are you doing today, Ken?
Doing great. I'm just, now that Tuesday is here and Monday is behind us, so.
Now you're not talking to the screen again. We're losing your content.
Oh, thank you so much. I may have to get me a new headset or something because it should follow me for, this little microphone, but for some reason it's not behaving the way I expect it to. Give me a second here to see what's happening here on Facebook. I don't see it.
Okay, will do.
If I can figure out what happened, because it said we are live.
We cannot be having questions already because we have not talked about anything yet.
Found what happened here. All right, now we are set. Excuse me. Well, anyway, getting back on topic, the technology sometimes is just like, wait a minute, where the heck is the lead?
It's all your time.
It does, the stream. And I like it because I've learned an awful lot, thanks to Gene Williams and Gene Dunford, who sort of taught me how to do this. And it's really fascinating and I love it. But there are times you just want to pull your hair out because the technology, you can't figure out what the heck went wrong. This was supposed to go in this way. And that's, sort of goes into our topic today. We're talking about the use of visual aids. That's our topic in your presentations. And I know that in several of the paths, there are projects that deal with the use of visual aids. And I remember in the old legacy program, there were projects that, taught you how to use visual aids. And of course, I'm a PowerPoint fanatic. I love PowerPoint. I use it for just about everything that I do when I have to have a presentation. But what types of visual aids do you find the most useful when you're giving a presentation, Phyllis?
Well, I use jewelry a lot. I was a collector, and I talk about the things that I used to collect that became nothing more than dust collectors. And so I started collecting jewelry. So each one of my pieces usually has a story about where I bought it on vacation. So rather than bringing back dust collectors, I have jewelry stories. So it's interesting. It's whatever you have that adds to your speech. If it doesn't add something to your speech, then you don't want to work so hard to put it into the speech. It has to work well, be something that's smooth and really adds to what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And the fact that you thought of jewelry right away as a visual aid, that's really a good point, because we often think of things like flip charts or whiteboards or PowerPoint or slideshows of some sort. We don't think often about objects that can tell a story and enhance a story, like a piece of jewelry. For example, you're wearing this very lovely necklace today, and I'll bet there's a story behind that.
Well, this is part of my collection that I bought when I went on the worst vacation ever. We stopped so many times in insignificant places. There were 3 busloads rather than 1, so 120 people plus. And they would stop like at a Colonel's for lunch, Now, the Colonel's, 120 people walking into a fast food restaurant. So then my sister and I would look around. We saw a Kmart. we went to Kmart and I bought jewelry. So each time we had one of these horrendous places to stop at, we found something else to do. And I usually bought jewelry to console myself. So one of my speeches, I talk about the jewelry and tell people that if I bought up to 20 pieces of jewelry, it was really a bad trip.
Oh my gosh. You're going to have to rent a storage facility just to house your jewelry. That's a great story, though, and I think it is a great way to have a themed meeting. Let's bring an object, and then let's tell the story behind it. I think there are numerous objects that I can think of right off the top of my head that have great stories behind them. And until you pointed that out, I did not think about it. So I'm having a technical issue. I'm going to take myself down here for a moment. So I want you to talk about what other types of visual aids, and then I'm going to fix this thing on the other computer, and I will be right with you, okay?
Well, one of the things that came up in a training that I gave on Sunday was virtual backgrounds. Are they allowed in contests? And absolutely, you cannot disqualify for anything other than originality, timing, or eligibility. Those are the only three things that you can eliminate people for. So the background is certainly a person's choice of whether they use one of these virtual backgrounds. And the problem that I see with it is when you look at me today, I lose half of my face, I lose my hair, I have hair that is not really there. And it's so distracting when you're trying to listen to a contest. So I would say virtual contest, virtual background, I wouldn't try it. You want everyone to concentrate on your speech. So virtual backgrounds are part of a prop. So think about it, whether or not you want to use one.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point in the world of virtual contests. Of course, the last couple of years, our contests have been pretty much virtual across the board. Mm-hmm. And I don't recall reading a specific prohibition on virtual backgrounds, but I think you're right. You have to use them carefully. They can enhance a presentation as long as there's something that goes with it, but you run the risk of getting too cute. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think you do have to be careful, but I like them when used judiciously. I think virtual backgrounds can really enhance and focus your presentation. I feel the same way, by the way, about some of the PowerPoint presentations, and I will confess immediately that I probably sometimes overuse PowerPoint, and I've not always done it in the best way. It's a presentation software program that has just a plethora of tools and devices that you can use to create a wonderful presentation, or you can create a total disaster. And I'm sure you've seen those. In fact, there's a video on YouTube people should look at. It's a comedian, and it's called Death by PowerPoint. It really goes through, what are some of the things that happens on PowerPoint that detracts from your presentation. And one of them is sort of a busy slide that has too many special effects on it. And you don't want that, because that detracts from what you're trying to present to the audience and is very confusing. I do have some examples, of course. So let me pull up yet another PowerPoint and and show you some of the things that I've learned over the years. Now, this is really part of a PowerPoint for presentation mastery discussion I have with level 3 elective. But one of the first things, and I've really just taken this to heart recently, is not putting too much on the slide at one time. Excuse me. And I'll show you the reason for that. But in like a slide like this, you want to have simple points. Visual aids can enhance your presentation and make it more memorable and more meaningful. That's true. PowerPoint is, of course, the most popular visual aid. It's used in educational and business settings. But here's the caveat. A poorly constructed PowerPoint presentation leads to ineffective messaging and fatigue. It just confuses the audience. Now notice that I brought these bullet points. There are only 3 of them. And I brought them in one at a time. The reason that I did that is if you bring them in as a single page, all on the same page simultaneously, which is something I used to do a lot. And my good friend Al Jensen said, hey, you need to stop doing that because people are going to be reading the slide instead of listening to what you have to say. And I realized, boy, he's right. He hit that right on the nose. So my first tip, if you're going to use visual aids with PowerPoint, is don't put any more information than like 3 or 4 bullet points. Keep them simple and then bring them up. You can, there's a setting called animations in PowerPoint that allows you to bring them in one at a time, just as this did. Another thing that should be obvious is don't put too many topics on a single slide. In this example, we've got like, it's just kind of, it looks rather random, but it's all related to Toastmasters. And it just goes on and on and on and on. And it's a little bit too much for your viewers or your audience to really focus on. So keep it simple, keep it 3 to 5 points and no more. This is another slide I love. We have people, pardon me, a little bit of a congestion this morning, who want to put every word they're going to speak on a slide. And so this is too much information and much of it is useless. This is a made-up story about Dr. Smedley and how he played basketball and what their uniforms look like and what have you. And it's all on a single slide. And if you read this verbatim, you're going to lose your audience. So it's certainly not a good technique. I don't know, have you been in presentations like that, Phyllis, that you're just like, wait a minute, I don't need this information. There's too much of it to read anyway.
I've been in presentations where the only thing I heard was what was written on the PowerPoint. No stories to go with it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you just really have to watch that and make it, the PowerPoint should, hit your main points, but it's not a substitute for being prepared to give your presentation verbally. For example, suppose your PowerPoint, your technology crashes on you. What do you do? Well, then you have to go on without your PowerPoint. Something I used to do. Yes, I've been there as well. It's like, what the heck is going on? Why doesn't it work? There are gremlins in the machine, in the computer, and sometimes they just refuse to cooperate. And one of the things that I always recommend is, as an option, you can print out your PowerPoint presentation. If it's that important, print it out, make copies, and distribute it to the room. And that way they can follow along. Now, the danger with that, of course, is they can run ahead of you as well. And that they get distracted looking at the handouts and what have you. But that's one option. You could also do the same thing, but not distribute those handouts until after your presentation. And then that's another way to keep the focus on what you're saying and not have people reading ahead while you're giving your presentation. Another thing that you see a lot of is people get fascinated with pictures. And I think, just as you said earlier, Phyllis, objects and other things like pictures can enhance your presentation. But like everything else, you can go overboard. And if you look at this slide, you've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pictures on it, and it's just overwhelming. There's no reason to have that many pictures. Just as you said, if you're going to have a visual aid like your necklace, it should enhance your story, not detract from it. And it should make sense in terms of what you're talking about. If you put up a picture that is contradicts or is not in keeping with your presentation, you're just going to confuse the audience and potentially lose them in the worst case scenario, or at the very least, they're not going to feel like they really learned. They didn't get their money's worth of what your presentation was about. Another thing that you have to avoid is, look at this, confusing charts and graphs. What the heck does this mean? It takes a lot of explaining. It's a lot of visual stimulation. And you can actually put, 4 or 5 charts and graphs on a single slide. And I think, in my opinion, and this is all opinion, of course, that you should only put 1 chart, 1 graph, 1 table per slide, and let that provide the visual impact that you want. There may be occasions when at most you might have 2, like in this is designed to look a little crazy, but you could have, a chart and a table that go together, but you definitely would not want any more than that. And you would not want it to be a very lengthy chart or table. You want to keep it simple and keep it brief so that the participants don't get distracted either by the charts and graphs, or they get lost in your presentation. So that's another thing I think is very important to do, especially if you're going to do a presentation with a lot of data. The other thing when it comes to—
I mentioned color coding here because that white is almost undistinguishable.
Exactly. Thank you very much for pointing that out, Phyllis. Be careful about the colors you select, the palette that you select, and how, because you have a lot of flexibility in PowerPoint to make changes. And you're absolutely correct. Get colors that are going to stand out, that will pop and make your presentation really visible. Don't use colors that are incompatible, so to speak, like the white you see here, with the gray background. So that's another really great point. Another thing you should not do, you can put rows and rows and columns of bullet points on a single slide. Don't do that. And here there's sort of 2 things: too many bullet points, and then having them side by side like this, even if you have fewer, can in and of itself be confusing. So I always say, fewer bullet points if you can, fewer bullet points and 1 column. Don't put multiple columns, even though you can, on a slide. Now, someone else may find that, well, I don't agree, here's how I do it, and that's okay. You just simply need to be aware of what you're doing and to look at it from the perspective of your audience. How is your audience going to view this particular slide? Another thing that I've seen done is organizational charts that try to have too much information on one slide. So instead of being informative, they simply get confusing. Why the heck are all of these arrows there? That's not explained anywhere. It looks like it might be pretty decent. You get a sense of how this company is organized, but then all of these arrows don't make any sense. And there's no explanation of anything about it. When you're doing organizational charts, especially, you want to be very, very careful about how they are constructed. Again, less is better. If you put less information on the slide, just enough to grab your audience's attention, and then use your presentation, your vocal presentation, along with eye contact and gestures, that is going to make it better for your audience, give them the better opportunity to listen. Now, here are some things to watch. Putting every word on the slide. Talked about this a little bit earlier. Changing font size and type. People like to change to different font sizes and types because they think it looks great. It doesn't. You should use, if you must, use just a couple of different fonts if you want for emphasis. And then when it comes to changing sizes, be very, very careful. And particularly when you're looking at a single slide or single bullet points like this, it can be very confusing and distracting if you have multiple font sizes and different types on a single bullet point like this. Don't use all caps, all small letters, or inconsistent, that's what that is there, inconsistent capitalization in your presentation. Just like reading a book, the all caps sort of screams at you, and the small letters seems insignificant. So you have to make the presentation as if you were writing. Caps when appropriate, small letters when appropriate, but never mix the two in a single line like that. Now this one I think you'll love, and I did this on purpose. You notice how in this slide we have all the text bouncing in. Don't do that. I did it to make a point. It's very distracting. Because we have all of these wonderful options in PowerPoint, folks think they have to use them. You do not have to use them. When you use text like this that moves and bounces in like I've got it here, it's very distracting. And it doesn't enhance your presentation. In fact, it takes away from your presentation. And finally, using acronyms. Make sure you know your audience. If you're using terms like DTM or PM level 3 or something like that, TLI, you may have members of your audience who don't know what all of that stands for. So you need to spell things out. And then, at least the first time, and put in parentheses, here's, TLI stands for Toastmasters Leadership Institute. So you want to watch that. Now, here are the to-do lists. That was things, and I'm sure that's not comprehensive. There are lots of other don't do's, but here are the things you really want to do. 1, keep it simple. 2, keep it clean. Simple and clean. Don't put 5 photographs and a column of text. And if you've ever downloaded some of the formats from TI, they do follow these rules in general. Sometimes I think they get the canned photographs like this one, for example, can be unhelpful in your presentation. And then finally, stay consistent. Are there other things I've forgotten that you should do with a presentation like this, Phyllis?
No, I think that you have really covered how we should write our own PowerPoints and present them. That's the main point, is being sure that if your presentation is about how to use PowerPoint, not how to use it, but what the slide should look like, I think that it's great to know those things, because you're right, many of us want to use all of the material available, and there's never enough time for all the material. A lot of times when you put something together, you have 2 hours worth of material. So I was thinking about it, and I thought, geez, he really does a nice job of putting the material, getting it all on the slides and keeping it within his time limit. Great job, Ken.
Well, thank you. I have to share this last one, mainly because down here at the bottom of the slide, you can see there are some tips I want to share with our audience about free pictures. And this is a great source. Of course, you can always go to TI. They have pictures that you can download that are very, very, very specific to Toastmasters. But if you're looking for some general beautiful photographs, go to pixabay.com, that's Pixabay, or pexels.com, Pexels.com. They have a series of beautiful photographs that you can use, and it's absolutely free. And you can find exactly what you're needing or pretty close to what you need by going to those websites. Well, that's a good sort of brief overview of some of the issues with visual aids, some of the things to think about on the TI website, and within some of the magazines in the archives on the TI website, you will find several articles that talk about the use of visual aids and have excellent examples. You can also download from TI sort of canned PowerPoint presentations that they have put together for your use, and you can edit them and put in your club name or your name, add to them, what have you. But they give you the basic format and sort of examples of what they see as the best way to put together a presentation. So I'd encourage people to explore those websites and explore TI. Now I can see that we're almost out of time here. I do want our audience to know that this Thursday, we are pleased to have immediate past district director, Kristen Harrell. She's going to be our guest on the show. She's going to be talking about what it takes to be a good leader. She's going to talk about the district leadership committee, which she is the chairperson of, and that's the committee responsible for recruiting and screening district officers. Because one of the things we really need to focus on for the coming year is bringing up new leaders. So I hope everyone will join us on Thursday. It's going to be a great program. Of course, all of our programs are great, aren't they, Phyllis?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I want to remind everyone, if you'd like to be a guest, please send me an email, or if you have any questions, send me an email at d115cgd@gmail.com. Any final thoughts, Phyllis? We're at about 6:28. We got a couple of minutes. What do you think?
Well, one final thought is that multiple props do not make it the best speech. I had a friend that used simply a baseball cap, and by putting it on his head different ways, he was talking for different people. So it worked really well. And he's got one thing, a baseball cap. So you can make smaller amounts work better, I think, rather than going all out with, 10. Make it smaller.
That is an excellent point. Having too many props in a speech or a presentation is sort of the equivalent in PowerPoint of having too many items on your slide or trying to do too many things in one presentation. So that's a really, really great tip. Well, thank you, Phyllis. You've been a great co-host as always. It's always a pleasure to meet with you every Tuesday and Thursday, and remind everyone that Wake Up with Toastmasters is on Monday through Friday at 6 to 6:30. On Mondays and Fridays, the host is our program quality director, Gene Williams. On Wednesdays, it's our public relations manager, Jennifer Smith. And of course, Tuesdays and Thursdays, Phyllis and I will lead you on this journey. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. See you later.